We had to pay 6 rupees per email for external email. So we had to do some cutting of corners there. Practice so hard that despite all these other problems you through, I barely knew English. And of course, they didn't understand Hindi. I didn't understand Tamil. I had to quickly pick up how to communicate with people. So when you throw that reputed institute like US college MBA on their face, they're like, okay,
Right.
fine. During those meetings, I often wonder, why am I not sitting on the other side of the table? With startup, you need that, right? You need to be able to survive with very little cash for a period. So for early stage startup team, the belief that the team can deliver matters. If you cannot monetize, it's not a business, it's a hobby.
Today we have Rishikesh with us. Rishikesh has over 20 years of experience in product, strategy, marketing, and engineering. Currently, he is serving as a CMO at Sprouts AI. And Rishikesh is actively involved in early stage startups through platforms like Techstars, where he's mentoring founders and helping them facilitate fundings from pre-seed to the seed round. So, Rishikesh, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. So, looking forward to have a lot of insights from you on corporate America and how to build the startups.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So, let's start from your early days, right? Tell us, how did IIT Bombay set you for the success, and what was your kind of reason to move to US for your masters?
Well, before we go to IIT, there was something that happened before that. I mean, why choose
Oh,
engineering, right?
oh, awesome.
I
Please go ahead.
hated memorization and I could never remember those biology complex terms. So I was like,
Oh,
doctor profession was out of the equation. So in 11th and 12th standard, or
mhm.
in US, we call it grade, I chose electronics. And one of those electronics project where we soldered all these chips, etc., on a board. One of my friends, I was excited that my project was working, right? I mean, as a 11th grade or 12th grade student, you are excited that something is working.
Right.
My friend, like those mean friends, no, actually friendly mean friends, he said, "Oh, but the real stuff is in that chip, and you haven't done really anything about it." And I was like, that's right. And then my goal became, I want to know everything about that chip. I want to be able to make that chip. How can I do that? And that's what led me into engineering.
Hmm.
And in my high school, one of my professors, or teachers rather, said, always bragged about IIT, and I had no idea what IIT was, but I knew it was going to be the best for me. So um, I wanted to get into IIT, and so I had to take 1 year break after my 12th standard, um, so to get into IIT, but I got into
Okay.
IIT.
Okay.
And the way IIT really helped me is nothing at that time. I mean, I was just going through the engineering program. I'm gay, so I was also dealing with a lot of that in the background.
Okay.
I was actually a little bit depressed during the day, so it kind of impacted my academics. But
Okay.
at the end of the day, it enabled me to get into the US, a
Hmm.
master's program, into a WE program.
Okay.
And that eventually landed me a job at Micron. And that's essentially how IIT helped me to get into the US, get into a big semiconductor company. Yeah,
Awesome. Awesome.
that's
Perfect. Perfect. I know that you got into your MS program around 95, 96, right?
97 plus.
97, 97. So moving to US was not very common back then. So how did you choose your like masters? I know that you did your engineering. You did
Yeah.
an MS in electrical engineering. So how did you
Yeah.
choose
So, I
that?
mean,
Okay.
yeah. So that's what I should elaborate my previous answer a little bit more.
Okay.
That's where IIT Bombay really helped. I mean, IIT Bombay had my seniors from a year ahead and 2 years ahead who have
Okay. Yeah.
successfully gone through that, and they left us a bunch of templates. Like, okay,
Hmm.
you want to go do this, do this, do this, and
Okay.
in those days, IITs were one of the few educational institutes who had email. Now we had
Okay.
to pay 6 rupees per email for external email, so we had to do some cutting of corners there. But uh, they had set a template for us to come to the US. This is how you do. then it's expensive to go. So you write letters like this to ask for waivers or deferrals. Okay, can you waive the fee? Just waive the fee. Or if you cannot waive the fee, at least defer it until I get admission and I join. So we used all those techniques to reduce the cost significantly for
Understood.
applications to various universities. And then, of course, there were template letters on of course, you had to do a lot of
Hmm.
customization, etc. We had to reach out to many different professors and see who replied, who even bothered to care, and then
Right.
only prioritize those applications. So yeah, all those templates, big contribution in enabling me to get to the US into a master's program.
Understood.
Initially, I got into physics to do my master's in physics, but
Hmm.
my seniors had already told me that in the US it's very easy to change the major.
Hmm.
So that's what I did. I from physics after a year I changed to WE.
Awesome. Awesome. So fast forward, let's say 2 years. Okay. So you post your masters, you joined Micron, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, like you joined as a product engineer, then you rose up to the rank being a manager in the company. So one question here, like, no, I see a lot of challenges with the students right now. I mean, they are facing kind of issues in getting their dream role in the US because they move out with a lot of expectations and they are not landing up the job they want. So did that happen to you as well? Because I believe you got your first job around 99, 2000, and then there was a like kind of a dot-com bubble at that moment as well. So did that affect your job search? Like what happened? If you can also let us know that.
Yeah, I mean, when the market is good, it's always easier to get a
It's all
job.
right.
That definitely helps. But I made my own mistakes back in those days.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in the university I had an interview with Texas Instrument, and the guy came and announced my name, and he so badly mangled my name that I couldn't even understand it was he was calling for me, and
Oh,
and so I did not show up, and he got mad, and I lost that opportunity. I
understood.
mean, I made stupid mistakes like that, but I think all of us do, and the less we do, the more successful we are.
Hmm.
So it's all about practice, I think. Uh, you know, practice so hard that despite all these other problems, you
Hmm.
uh, prevail.
Right, right.
I don't
Awesome.
know if I answered your question.
No, no, that's perfectly fine. I mean, that's quite understood. It's more about the practice, more about the reaching out to people to get your first breakthrough. All right.
Right.
So, I mean, I have one question. I was just going through a profile and I was pretty curious. Like, I mean, this person has been able to switch careers and industries. I mean, like, you joined as a product engineer, then you moved on to product marketing, and now you're kind of into startups. You are like mentoring startups, and you're working in one of them. So, what is the secret here? How you've been able to kind of switch, I mean, like, kind of industries and role like at a significant level?
I think there are many things. One is a curiosity and being able to project yourself as a part of the community.
Hmm.
And I had to learn that pretty early on. I mentioned that I took a 1 year break to get into IIT. That's
Mm-hmm.
when I landed in Chennai. And those people don't talk in Hindi. I barely
Hmm.
knew English. And of course, they didn't understand Hindi. I didn't understand Tamil. So I had to quickly pick up how to communicate with people. So I picked
Hmm.
up a little of Telugu, picked up a little bit of Tamil, and it enabled to get that initial hesitation down. Like, okay, yes, you are trying to be like us, etc. And that really made the rest of the things easier, even though it was hard to communicate, etc. That's again helped me when I was at Micron and I had to manage teams from China and India. It's funny. I picked up a little bit of Chinese, and that was enough. It was not that I was communicating with them in Chinese. No way. Even now, I cannot do that. But it just helps you break that barrier,
Hmm.
and then the rest becomes easier. Um, and it's not just the language barrier; it's also what they are doing. So if you're talking to a product manager, try to understand what the product manager world is like. And when you show curiosity and understanding that you're not completely naive about it, it really breaks down those initial barriers and then facilitates everything else. So again, same thing happened. Um, sorry. Now to transition from my engineering to marketing, I had to do an MBA.
Hmm.
I mean, I felt at the time that I had to do MBA. I mean, there are people who have transitioned without doing an MBA. And if you can do that, kudos to you. As an Indian engineer in the US, they already have like stereotypes about you.
Hmm.
Yes, technically you're great. Maybe any analytical work, you're great. But the
Hmm.
moment you want to be in marketing, your communication is looked at with high scrutiny, and they just don't believe you can do it. So
Agree.
in those situations, a degree from a reputed college like UCLA really helps, you know, push those people over the edge. As in,
Hmm.
what I mean by that is, you have in an interview there are always 5 6 people,
Right.
and with 5 6 people, maybe four of them believe in you.
Hmm.
And then there's always one person who's like, "Nah, I don't think so." Uh, so when you throw that reputed institute like US college MBA on their face, they're like, okay,
Right.
fine. Um, so I think I needed that initially. Um,
Understood.
yeah. So that's how I transitioned into uh, marketing, and
Hmm.
then it's just a matter of um, being able to find opportunities that can leverage all of your background and make
Hmm.
you do a little bit more. Because when you join a particular job, you need to start delivering, and you use your background and your past experience to do that delivery, but at the same time have something new. So there's always excitement in the job. So I
Hmm.
mean, that's how I kind of navigated through various different roles.
Understood. I know I can completely relate here. No, I personally I started as a tutor. Like, no, I was kind of helping people prepare for the CAT exam. It's kind of an MBA in India, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
I
no,
kind of I took my test as well. No, I kind of able to pull out good score, and then I always felt that okay, I can use math for a bigger reason, for a bigger purpose. I can help company, I can help industry, and then that's how the idea of analytics came in. And then I kind of moved to Canada, Toronto, did my kind of masters here, and then completely navigated to analytics, and then now to a startup again. So this is kind of
yeah,
curiosity. Curiosity
yeah.
is the thing.
Yeah. So talking about another transition to startups, right? After my engineering work at a big company like Micron, and then working for various other big companies, Samsung, Toshiba, Western
Right.
Digital, I did not have a good startup experience. And so,
Hmm.
um, part of it is what you want to do, and part of it is the necessity. I was laid off from Samsung.
Okay.
The market was bad, whatever the reason,
Hmm.
but I needed that push to really get into startups. At my role at Samsung, I was actually interacting, I was driving open innovation. And
Hmm.
what that means is you there is innovation inside your company that can help you push your product, but there is a
Right.
lot of innovation outside your company
Hmm.
that you can leverage and see how you can push your products
Right.
that way. And that was my role. So I interacted with many different startups,
Hmm.
mostly Series B and above. But during those meetings, I often wonder, why am I not sitting on the other side of the table? And
Hmm.
that's when I started thinking about my career. That hey, I've been in Silicon Valley for 25 years and never worked for a startup. I don't want to die not even giving it a try. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that. And that's when I went ahead and registered as a mentor at
Hmm.
Falcon, at Techstars and Plug and Play and TriNtech Open, start out many such organizations, even IIT startups.
Awesome.
And when you start doing that, uh, you know, the startup founders, they know, okay, yes, you are. embedded in this ecosystem. Then
Hmm.
I invested in a couple of startups to really do some hands-on work, and that enabled me to get some um, work away from semiconductors, right? I only had worked for mostly semiconductor companies in the past, so it enabled me to. And since I invested, now I could legitimately do some SaaS kind of company work, some other
Awesome.
cloud kind of work, etc. So
Awesome.
that's how I kind of made that transition.
Awesome. So, this one question, Rishikesh, like, a lot of mid-career professionals, I talk to them and they're like very reluctant in moving from large corporation to startups. Although they know that startup can open a lot of opportunities for them, but they are kind of reluctant in a lot of way. So, what was your challenge here? I mean, like, how challenging was your for you to move from a large corporation like Semiconductor? I mean, Samsung Semiconductor, like Micron, to move completely to a new startups where the process are new, systems are yet to set up. What was the challenges? If you can also talk about to us.
Well, I think more than that challenge, a lot of people have to navigate. People in early career, especially, they have to navigate visa issues. A lot of
Hmm.
stuff will do visas, but there are some ways to fix that problem. And better to talk to a lawyer than me because I got my
Hmm.
citizenship long time ago, so I didn't personally have to fix the problem.
Got
That's one visa issues. The second is financial.
it.
People who are in early careers, they don't have enough savings that can, you know, enable them to take risk of low cash flow for
Hmm.
years. With startup, you need that, right? You need to be able to survive with very little cash for a short
Hmm.
period. Now, again, a startup, there are two types of startups in the sense before the Series A round, startups they don't have much money. They will not pay you enough cash.
Right.
It will be equity heavy. So that's what I'm.
Hmm.
If you go to Series A or even Series B plus,
Hmm.
by that time VCs have poured enough, and they will pay you uh, decent, close to market salary.
Hmm.
So the finance issue is gone, but there is still this uncertainty that the startup might go up, and then
Right.
you have like if you are on an H1 visa, then you need to find something else in you have like a month or so, very little time to jump the ship, and people get nervous with that.
Hmm.
So I think it's not what you do at the startup, but it's um, the other factors that drive people's decision not to go with the startup.
Hmm. Do you also believe there's a mindset thing? Like,
Mhm.
people are more kind of relaxed in a corporate setting where a system is there, and they're kind of there's a mindset issues that no, I mean, when you jump into the startup, there's a lot of process yet to be figured out, and then you will be exposed in a kind of way because I believe so because I've talked to a lot of people, and then there's like thing that comes up like no, I mean, no, there's no stability, there's no setup in the startup, like that can completely put you in a spot of bother. So.
Yeah, I mean, those differences are there in big companies. You have to follow the
Hmm.
procedure that is already set up. In
Hmm.
the startup, you get to create that process. Some people may find it a little bit challenging or mentally, and they get nervous.
Right, right, cool.
Yeah, but I think that should not be a big barrier. Most of the people who have come to the US, they have a certain mindset. Uh,
Hmm.
they have already crossed many of those mental barriers. They
Mental
have
barriers.
taken big challenges to go into a country and live, completely away from family and your familiar surroundings. So I don't think that it would be such a big problem
Hmm.
for immigrants, especially.
Hmm. Understood. So now we will come to our favorite part, right? How to build the startups, because there are a lot of our viewers who are in a stage where they want to build a startup,
Mhm.
and they're building a startup, and they're stuck at a certain stage. So I think this conversation will definitely help them. So there's one question out here, like, no, I mean, I know that there's a problem in the market, right? I mean, there's an idea that can help a lot of people out there. Now, how do I evaluate my idea? How do I build my conviction on the idea so that I can go ahead and build a startup on it? What do you think?
I mean, that's where the marketing principles come in. Before you write a single line of code,
Hmm.
you need to validate if it has a business value.
Hmm.
Yes, you may have personal pain, but are you the only one, or there are many others like you?
Hmm.
And more importantly, are they willing to pay for
Hmm.
it? So you have to kind of define um, the character like you who is having the pain.
Hmm.
Reach out to as many as you can. The more, the merrier. Um,
Hmm.
and you will start hearing the same thing. Yes, the pain is real. Okay, if I'm willing to pay, I don't know, $1,000 per month or whatever the number is, it doesn't matter. Uh, that is the validation you have to get. Would you pay for this pain? Otherwise, it's just a vitamin tablet, good to solve, but you're not willing to pay, then you don't have a business. And where do you find these people? You have to find where they go. So it really depends on what you're building. It could be in, design con like conferences or hardware con. It could be SaaStr. It's for software professional. Or if you're building an HR tech, then you'll have to go to HR conferences to find those customers.
Hmm.
You have to go to the right place to find those customers. I mean, there is always LinkedIn. You can search and reach out, do all that. But if you go to a conference that is relevant, people are already in that mindset to kind of share,
Hmm.
give feedback, and etc. etc. Conferences usually attract a certain kind of people, and you can get your research done faster, even if you
Hmm.
have to pay a few $100s for the conference.
Agreed. So they are like out of, let's say, out of 200 people who are into, let's say, HR tech, right? Building an HR tech. So you can also reach out to them, understand their value proposition, how they are building, and what kind of conviction they have built. So we can also borrow the conviction. So in that way, I think, uh,
Yeah, so that comes later. First of all, you're validating the pain point and willingness to pay.
right.
The best practices is something that you then again go to conferences, find other startups who are in the similar space but not conflicting, and then
Hmm.
learn from their best practices.
Nice.
They already have insights. Oh, HR people will never do this, or
Hmm.
instead of you learning it in a painful way, it's better to partner with some of these other startups who are already ahead of you, and they'll tell you, no,
Hmm.
no, we tried that, it doesn't work, whatever it is.
Got it. Got it. So basically, learning from the others' experiences and minimizing the mistakes. Okay.
I mean, that's the mantra for anything, right?
Hmm.
Early in my career, I when I was at Micron, I didn't really leverage my IIT and other connections that much
Okay.
because as a gay person, I was struggling with coming out issues to my family,
Hmm.
to other people.
Hmm.
So I spent a lot of time. But looking back, I wish I had reached out to some of my fellow IITians who are ahead in their career in the direction where I was going,
Hmm.
and just had coffee meetings. Back in those days, virtual meetings were not possible, but I was in the I mean, I'm in the Silicon Valley, so I had access to many. I could have easily
Right.
leveraged and learned from their experience.
Hmm.
I could have been even more successful, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, I think whether it's a startup or just you're trying to go ahead in your career, asking others is very important. I
Important.
look at it as the game of snake and ladder.
Hmm.
That Sapshidi game in Marathi.
Yeah.
We call it Sapshidi.
Yes.
So um, getting mentor is like getting a ladder.
Hmm.
You pump up in your career, and
Right.
then if you don't do that, you will get more snakes because you learn from that snake and it will pull you down.
Right. Right.
So
Hmm.
having
Hmm.
mentors, and constantly reaching out to people um, who are in the direction of your goal
Hmm.
is like getting those ladders all the time. So you shortcut many things. It is not going to be like a big major
Hmm.
breakthrough. It could be, but more often it's going to be a lot of small wins that enable you to go faster.
Agreed.
Um, Speaking of which, having goal is really important because if you don't have a goal, nobody can help you. You are scattered.
Right.
So
Right.
before you even talk to somebody, you need to know where you want to go. Then
Yes.
you can find the right people, and they can give you the right guidance.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that answer. Great. So, Rishikesh, I have one question here because talking to few startups in the conferences as well, and in my day to day, because a lot of people in my network are building these. They're like at an early stage, right? So I see a lot of startups kind of fail in the first 2 years of their inception, right? Either they are not able to scale, right, or they fail to pivot. So when do you see the right moment to make a pivot in an idea, or let's say concept they are building? And this question is for a lot of startup founders as well, like, when is the right time to make a pivot?
I mean, it's really hard to tell, but I think I asked the same question to another person who had successful startups, and
Okay.
this is what he said: when you are doing something, you will get a lot of opinions, and
Hmm.
you need to have a conviction to kind of ignore those opinions.
Hmm.
Uh, but if you have at least some data driven decision making, you need to find the data. If the data is saying this is a wrong path, definitely you have to believe that and make the pivot. Now, in every situation, you may not always have the data uh, to help you
Right.
guide. Um, but when people are expressing opinions, maybe ask them questions to get those data points.
Hmm.
Many times it may not just be opinion, it may be there is some data behind it. So if you can get to that and convince yourself that, yes, I am indeed wrong, then by all means you should do that. But there are many people who will just give you opinion for no reason. Then you can safely ignore those.
Right. Right. Okay. Now, I know that you've been a mentor to a lot of startups now. I mean, you personally invested in few of these companies. You're mentoring these early stage startup in a VC firm as well. So now, with bit of my research, I could pull out the data. This less than 0.5% of the businesses are getting funded in the US,
Hmm.
and this is kind of this stat is like true across the globe. So, you as an investor, what do you see in a startup before you invest in it? Is it the founder, or is it the industry itself, or you follow the trend? What is your take on it?
I mean, there's a little bit of everything there.
Hmm.
When it's a very early stage startup, um, there are a lot of unknowns, and you have to, at the end of the day, you just have to believe certain things. So for early stage startups, team, the belief that the team can deliver matters. So again, in investment, there is a goal, right? You
Hmm.
want to multiply your money, and you know
Hmm.
it's high risk. So how
Right.
do you reduce that risk? Uh,
Hmm.
One way, if the team has delivered before, then you
Okay.
know they can deliver again. They have learned a lot from that past interaction. Right?
Perfect. Hmm.
That's one thing.
Hmm.
A lot of startups fail because of the team interaction, a lot of ego or misunderstanding, etc., etc.
Hmm.
So if they have not done a startup before, then you look if they have worked closely together
Got
in
it.
the past. So at
Got it.
least that risk is minimized.
Hmm.
Then, of course, you look at the market because if you are having a startup in an already crowded market,
Hmm.
it's going to be challenging.
Right.
So you try to find a market that is rapidly growing
Hmm.
because that's what will multiply your money, right? if the market is not rapidly growing, it will have hard time multiplying. It's like riding the wave. So they need to be at least mindful of that wave. If the startup founders themselves are clueless about such mega trends that could impact, then that's another negative for the founders themselves. That
Hmm.
you are targeting an area which is going to be extremely challenging. So why would I invest my money when I have other options?
Hmm.
There
Perfect.
are a lot of founders who do not think about that multiplication factor. Uh,
Hmm.
B2B SaaS has proven to have that multiplication factor. But a lot of people will start startups that are very service oriented, that has a lot of human element.
Hmm.
Those startups don't scale. And
Don't scale.
uh, especially from India, a lot of people have a startup that is heavily service oriented and then they don't get funding.
Hmm.
So that's another factor. And of course, when so many people are investing in a particular area, there is a reason, right? So that it becomes a trend and then it becomes very difficult to ignore. Uh,
Hmm.
so, I mean, the herd mentality has its positives and negatives.
And negatives as well. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
But in many cases, it does help you narrow down in the right direction.
Right direction. Okay. So what I was able to conclude is first that is the team, right? How closely they have worked and what are the profile of the team members, right?
Yeah,
If they
that's
have built
business.
something in the past,
Yeah.
if they have worked in the past, profile, uh, basically the industry they are building, right?
Yeah, that would be
And
the market risk industry
the
risk.
market, right? And the third is basically if other investors are pumping in money into that company or possibly the industry,
That's a validation from others.
right? Right.
I mean, there may be some areas that the founder has found out that others have not caught on.
Hmm.
It's possible, but then are you able to ask the right questions and get that thing out of them?
Hmm.
Um,
Okay. Rishikesh, that puts me in one question. Like now, I know we can go for hours. I'll try to keep it short. This is one question for that came into my mind currently. Like no, even after getting those VCs money, 80-90% of the startup fails. Right? Only there's like no, I mean five. I mean, if my stats are correct, there's like 5% of the company that goes on to make into a series A level, B level, and on further. So, I mean, what are the top reasons you see that these startups go on to fail?
I don't know. There's like many different reasons.
Give
Only
us give us like top two three. I mean
I
that
think I
would
would
really help.
talk about typical Indian startup founder who is on the technical side, right?
Okay.
Um, as a founder, as a CEO,
Uh-huh.
you really need to brush up on your communication.
Okay.
Um, Most of us ignore that because we came here despite having bad communication,
Hmm.
right? So we never valued it. But going forward as a startup founder, you need to communicate with investors. You need
Okay.
to communicate with customers. You need to
Hmm.
communicate with your own employees.
Hmm.
You have to fix that problem.
Okay.
Go ahead and take some class on communication, on smarter communication, better communication, more emotive communication, so you can connect with everybody. Uh, Trust is very important, and with better communication, you can make other people trust you more.
Hmm.
Those are the things that many of us ignore. And I did that also in my beginning part of career. Despite those language advantages I had, I could have done a lot more.
Hmm.
So spend some money and get that fixed.
Great.
That's one major thing I would say. The second I would say is yes, you are an engineer, so you value engineering.
Hmm.
Do not ignore marketing, sales, and other elements. As
Hmm.
you are building your team, yes, initially you will build the engineering team, but at some point you have to understand that you need to invest equally in other areas.
Hmm.
Get a good understanding of what they do and what they do, what are their timelines like, um, and invest there as well. A lot of technical founders, they keep building their engineering team and completely ignoring other elements. So
Got it.
I would say those are at least
Got it. Got
two
it.
glaring ones for a typical Indian techie founder.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Awesome. Great. No, I mean, a lot of insights in today's conversation. I mean, like, no, and I'm sure this is going to help a lot of people as well. So there's one last question, Rishikesh. Like, no, I see that a lot of people. No, I graduated from Sholek, and Sholek is kind of, I mean, known for this startup ecosystem. And I have the privilege of talking to a few of these founders, early stage founders. So there's one thing that I know keep getting. I mean, when we talk to these founders, like, no, we get to know that there's a two-way they launch their product. So the first type of founders are people those who build their initial product and they quickly launch into the market. I mean, we can name it as MVP, let's say minimum viable product. So they launch the MVP and kind of they learn from the customers, right? And they
Mhm.
eventually revamp their product like month after month, year after year, and so on. Then there's another type of founders, right? Generally MBAs. They are trained in the user research. So what they believe is doing extensive user research and put out a product in the market that is completely finished product, right? Because they are too scared of losing those early customers, right? So they really want to kind of put a Steve Jobs like product right into the market early stage. So
No.
what would you suggest, like putting up the MVP, right? I mean, in the market and learning from the customers, or putting up, let's say, finished product right away in the market. So how what would be your take on it?
I mean, it has to be a combination of that,
Hmm.
both of the approaches. You cannot go into one extreme.
Okay.
Just isolated working on a product with no customer input is just too much risk.
Hmm.
Um, you are you're essentially sacrificing your own time and opportunities in building something that you think might work.
Hmm.
It's. I mean, this was typical in Toshiba and other big companies I worked, where the engineering team would come up with some innovation and say, "Okay, who is going to buy it?" It's not really that good.
Hmm.
On the other hand, uh, the MBAs, you're saying that they wait until the product is finished. I'm not really sure about
I
that,
mean,
but
not this is just a generalization, not like a kind of
yeah,
a number that
you
I've
do
spoken
want
to.
to do you do want to do market research and quickly come up with some product that sort of kind of works
Right.
and
So
put it out there.
right, right, perfect.
Get more customer feedback, and it's that iteration cycle that really helps you.
Helps you.
Uh,
Okay. Great.
So when you're talking about a founder who puts the MVP and goes through the iteration, yes. But if you have not validated the earlier market need, those iterations, it may be a working product, it may be something that solves the pain, but it may not bring the money,
Hmm.
right? So in some situation, they are lucky that it makes money, but you have to think about making money even before building a product.
Great. Awesome. So basically, the combination of both is the right. I mean,
Yeah,
way to go
you,
into the
you
market.
have to do market research before. I mean,
Hmm.
that's the third thing, I guess, a lot of technical founders skip out on is that market research part. And it's
Got
not really that difficult. You just need to find the right people who have the same pain and validate it. A lot of people feel uncomfortable asking the money question.
Hmm.
They will just say, "Oh, is this a pain point?" And they're happy when they say, "Yes, it is a pain point." Okay, how are you going to pay for? How much are you going to pay for it? Right now, you come up with another video conferencing tool, Google and Zoom already giving out 40 minutes and 45 minutes of free video conferencing. I mean, who is going to pay you? You may come up with an excellent product, uh, but are they going to pay you? How are you going
Hmm.
to monetize? If you cannot monetize, it's not a business, it's a hobby.
Right. Right. Awesome. So if it is not making a money, it's not a business, it's a hobby. Okay, I'll
Yes.
keep this tagline. Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. It was a great conversation. I mean, I still believe I have tons of questions, but I will not keep you waiting here. So I'll possibly reach out in other means. So again, thank you so much for
One more thing I would like to ask that you asked in the preliminary questions
Mhm,
is not coming from an IIT or other background. I
mhm,
don't think, yes, it does help you if you're coming from IIT, etc., but that should not be a barrier. Um,
mhm,
when you reach out to people, you just have to find a common ground. In my case, that happens to be IIT. In many cases, it happens to be UCLA or Iowa State. Those are the universities where I come from. But I participate in TI, so that becomes a common factor. You
mhm.
just go and participate in various nonprofit organizations. That becomes a common ground to reach out to
Right,
people. You just have
right,
to find some common ground. It could be as simple as, oh, we are from the same town in India, or there are too many Indians in the Bay Area, so being Marathi or Indian by itself it does not help. But if
right,
you are, let's say, in other parts of US, just the fact that you are Indian helps you is the common
connect,
ground enough for you to
right,
reach out to other people. So
right,
uh, IIT or not, you should leverage and find those common grounds among people. If it's some other white person and you have an MBA, you just say, "Hey, I'm a fellow MBA or a business person. I'm a fellow product engineer. I'm a fellow whatever."
right.
Just leverage those common grounds to reach out and ask for help.
Great, awesome, awesome. Just one last question out of curiosity. So you have had like around 20 years of experience, 20 years plus of experiences.
Mhm.
So I mean, a suggestion for all our viewers, like that you have received from your mentor and that has helped you throughout your journey, if you would like to tell us.
I mean, a lot of different things have helped me.
Mhm.
Um,
One that comes up at the top.
oh, I do not um, reach out for help. Do not hesitate to talk to senior
Mm,
people. I used to be afraid to talk to VPs, and that was just 5 years ago. And
mm.
when I broke that barrier, uh, felt comfortable going and talking to anybody and asking for help, it really enabled a lot of feedback for me.
Understood. Great. So reaching out to people, do not hesitate, reach out to people, and it can open so many doors, so many
Yes.
doors for all of you.
Yeah.
Great, great, great. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful conversation, and no, I've learned personally a lot from this conversation. I'm sure a lot of our viewers are going to take tons of information out of this. So glad to have you.
Yes. All the best to everyone there and to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.